The galaxy, vast and untamable, had long been a place where power ruled, where survival depended not on courage, but on compliance. Every species, every civilization had its boundaries, its limits, defined by centuries of tradition, technology, and laws. No species had dared challenge these rules until the humans arrived. They were different, not because they were more powerful, not because their weapons were more advanced, but because they did not follow the rules. And in a universe that thrived on predictability, that was the most dangerous thing of all. Omega-12 was the most infamous location in the galaxy. A star system at the edge of known space, it was a place feared by all. Legends told of its near impossible conditions, a black hole at its center that tore apart anything that came near, powerful gravitational anomalies that twisted time and space. No ship had ever survived entering the Omega-12 system. For years, Omega-12 had been a place of mystery, a silent warning etched into the fabric of galactic history. For most, the system was a boundary, a wall beyond which no one dared venture. For others, it was a grim tale to frighten the young, a myth that remained just that, a cautionary tale. But there was one species that had never taken myths seriously, and it was the one species that would soon rewrite the rules of survival in the galaxy. That species was humanity. The first human explorers to set foot in Omega-12 had been sent there by the Galactic Council, a body of the galaxy's most powerful species who sought to keep the dangerous system locked away. They sent humans because they believed humanity would fail where others had succeeded. The humans were brash, untested, and unpredictable. The galaxy's council thought them reckless, an inferior species that would bow to the forces of nature. But humanity, in its trademark style, had no interest in following the council's directive. Instead of cowering from the dangers of Omega-12, the humans embraced them. Their first foray into the system had been a disaster, to be sure. But that was the thing about humanity they learned quickly. They adapted. And they never, ever, accepted the notion of failure. The first human vessel to enter the Omega-12 system, the Reckoning, was a sleek, purpose-built ship designed to withstand the intense gravitational fields and radiation of the system. While other species had equipped their ships with the most advanced technology, the humans had done something different. They relied on instinct. They didn't rely solely on machines. They trusted the skill of their crew, the cunning of their commanders, and their willingness to think beyond the limits of established science. Captain Isla Novak, a young but brilliant commander, led the Reckoning through the horrors of Omega-12. She had trained for years in the toughest environments the galaxy had to offer, but even she had no idea what she was about to face. As the ship approached the black hole at the heart of the system, the crew braced for the worst. Even with all their technology and preparation, they knew that no one had ever come this far and returned. Captain, her chief engineer, a seasoned human named Victor Kale, said, his voice crackling through the intercom. "We're about to hit the gravity well. This is where it all falls apart. Our shields won't last." Isla didn't flinch. "Then we get creative. Prep the pulse cannons. I want every photon we can muster. We're not going down like this." Kale hesitated. "Captain, the Reckoning wasn't designed to survive this kind of pull. No ship—" "I know," Isla interrupted. "But we're humans, and we don't follow the rules. If this ship has to turn into a flying bomb to break free, then that's what we're going to do." And they did. The Reckoning shot forward with reckless abandon, ignoring every piece of conventional wisdom that had been passed down for millennia. The crew fought with every tool at their disposal, manipulating the ship's systems with an audacity that no one else would have dared. The ship's engines roared against the gravity of the black hole, pushing it forward inch by inch. Every member of the crew played a part, even those with minimal experience. They had one thing that no other species had: the belief that they could survive the impossible. In the end, they did it. The Reckoning was the first ship in history to leave the Omega-12 system. It emerged battered, damaged, but alive. The crew emerged, too, and they carried with them the knowledge that the galaxy's limits had just been shattered. The story of the Reckoning's success spread quickly. The Galactic Council, initially dismissive of humanity, watched in disbelief as the humans defied the most fundamental laws of nature. It was one thing to break a law here or there, to challenge the status quo. But to outright ignore the most terrifying force in the universe? That was unheard of. But the humans had not only survived Omega-12, they had conquered it. They had proven that no force in the universe, not gravity, not time, and not space itself, could keep them from their goal. The other species in the galaxy began to take notice. They had heard rumors, seen evidence of humanity's growing strength. But this was different. They realized that humanity could not be predicted, that they didn't obey the same rules as everyone else. And that was terrifying. The Galactic Council, fearing the implications of a species that couldn't be controlled, decided to act. They ordered a blockade of the Omega-12 system. They believed that the humans would be so overconfident, so reckless, that they would venture back in again. This time, they thought, humanity would be destroyed. But they had miscalculated. The humans, not content with simply surviving, set their sights on Omega-12 once again. Only this time, they weren't going in to explore. They weren't going in to test the limits of what was possible. They were going in to conquer. The blockade was massive. The galaxy's most powerful ships, armed to the teeth, surrounded Omega-12, waiting for any sign of human movement. The Galactic Council waited, ready to see humanity fail. But humanity didn't follow the rules. In a daring move, the human fleet, led by the Reckoning, entered the Omega-12 system once again. This time, the humans didn't try to sneak past the blockade. They didn't try to hide. Instead, they went straight for the heart of the system, straight for the black hole at its center. They activated their engines, pushing their ships into overdrive, using every ounce of energy they had to get past the Council's blockade. The ships moved with an unprecedented speed and precision, ignoring every attempt to stop them. The human fleet tore through the blockade with a speed that left the alien forces stunned. The human ships, not bound by the same cautious tactics that the Council's forces relied on, fought in unpredictable ways. They attacked from impossible angles, using the gravitational anomalies of Omega-12 to their advantage, outmaneuvering ships that had far greater firepower. The aliens tried to regroup, but they were unprepared for the chaotic brilliance of humanity's strategies. The humans didn't just rely on their advanced technology, they relied on ingenuity, courage, and the unyielding belief that they could overcome any obstacle. The aliens could not anticipate them, could not understand how humans thought. The battle was intense, brutal, and fast. Human ships danced around their alien counterparts, launching precise strikes at their weak points, exploiting every vulnerability with terrifying accuracy. Every move the humans made was calculated, but unpredictable. No one could predict what they would do next. When the battle finally ended, the human fleet stood victorious. The Galactic Council's blockade was shattered, and the path to Omega-12 was wide open. The humans had done what no one had thought possible. They had conquered Omega-12. But this was just the beginning. The other species in the galaxy had underestimated humanity. They had believed the humans would follow the rules, that they would obey the laws of the universe. But humanity had proved that they were not bound by any laws, except the ones they made for themselves. And now, as the humans stood on the precipice of something greater, they understood one simple truth: in a universe where no one survived Omega-12, humanity had rewritten the rules. The galaxy had underestimated humanity once, and it would not make that mistake again. Humanity had proven that survival was not about following the rules. It was about breaking them. And no one would ever forget the lesson they had learned. No one survives Omega-12. Except the humans. The human fleet lingered in the dark expanse of Omega-12, their victory ringing in the air like a challenge to every species across the galaxy. The aliens, for the first time in centuries, were forced to confront something they hadn't thought possible: a species that operated outside the predictable, a species that learned, adapted, and pushed beyond the limits of every rule they had ever established. But the victory was not without its consequences. As the Reckoning and its fleet drifted through the remains of the blockade, a strange silence hung in the air. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their control, now found themselves at a crossroads. For the first time in millennia, their dominance was being questioned by a race they had long deemed inferior. Captain Isla Novak stood at the helm of the Reckoning, her eyes focused on the star maps that glowed dimly in front of her. The crew was silent, their work done, but their minds were far from at ease. The victory over Omega-12 had shattered their enemies, but it had also opened up a new frontier of uncertainty. "We've crossed a line, haven't we?" Isla muttered to herself, her fingers tracing the edge of the console. Tessa, the young intelligence officer who had now become one of the key figures in their missions, stepped up beside her. The girl's eyes were filled with the kind of intensity that only those who had faced impossible odds could possess. "We crossed more than one," she replied softly. "We shattered their perception of reality. And now they're afraid." "Afraid?" Isla turned her gaze to Tessa, her voice tinged with a sense of disbelief. "How can they be afraid? We just broke their blockade, made it through Omega-12, and lived to tell the tale. They must know we're not just survivors anymore. We're conquerors." Tessa's lips curled into a small, grim smile. "Afraid of how far we'll go. Afraid that humanity doesn't obey their rules, their logic. They're afraid of the unknown, and humans are the embodiment of that. They don't know how to predict us anymore. And that scares them." Isla turned back to the view screen, her expression hardening. "Good. Let them be scared. Let them wonder if we're going to push further. But I don't think they'll stop at fear. We've shown them that the rules are meant to be broken, but the galaxy's powers will never let that stand. They'll come for us." Her words hung in the air, heavy with the weight of inevitable confrontation. The Galactic Council had to retaliate. The human victory over Omega-12 had irreparably altered the power dynamics of the galaxy. It wasn't just about human survival anymore, it was about their place in the galaxy's future. "We should prepare for their response," Tessa said, her voice calm but with a glint of determination in her eyes. "The Council won't let this go. They've underestimated us, but they'll come with everything they've got to ensure this doesn't happen again. We'll need every ship, every weapon, and every ally we can find." Isla nodded. "I know. The next phase of this battle isn't going to be as easy as the first. We've made a lot of enemies today, and we're about to make more." As the Reckoning and its fleet moved through the stars, Isla's mind raced through the possible outcomes. There was no mistaking the gravity of their position. They had defied the natural order of the galaxy, and the galaxy would not sit idly by. There was always a price to pay for breaking the rules, no matter how justified the action. And humanity had just thrown the most audacious challenge the galaxy had ever seen. "What do we do now?" Tessa asked, breaking through the captain's train of thought. Isla looked around the command deck. The crew, battle-worn and tired from their harrowing escape from Omega-12, had begun to settle into a new rhythm. The aftershocks of their victory had set in. Everyone knew things were about to escalate, but no one knew just how bad it would get. "We go on the offensive," Isla declared. "We don't wait for them to come to us. We strike first. We'll rally every system that's been oppressed, every world that's tired of the Council's control. We make sure they know humanity doesn't just survive the rules. We change them." It was a bold plan, one that carried immense risk. But that was the essence of human strategy: risk and reward, hope and defiance, survival and triumph. Humanity had risen from the ashes of countless wars, crises, and challenges, and this was just another step in their relentless march forward. As the Reckoning made its way toward the heart of the galaxy, the word spread like wildfire. Other species, watching from afar, whispered among themselves, wondering if they should align with this human rebellion. The idea of humanity overthrowing the Galactic Council was revolutionary, but it also posed a threat to everything the galaxy's powerful elites had worked for. And yet, many of the oppressed systems, the forgotten colonies, and the smaller species, who had suffered under the weight of the Council's rule, saw an opportunity in the human actions. Alliance offers began to trickle in from corners of the galaxy that the Council had ignored or oppressed for generations. Even those who had once viewed humanity as little more than an interesting anomaly now saw them as something more, a beacon of resistance, a symbol that the established powers were no longer invincible. If humanity could survive Omega-12, maybe they could topple the greatest empire the galaxy had ever known. Within weeks, Isla and her crew had begun forming a coalition, a ragtag collection of species, worlds, and fleets who shared a common goal: to disrupt the Council's dominance. It wasn't easy. There were old grudges to settle, diplomatic minefields to navigate, and a host of factions who saw the humans not as liberators, but as opportunists. But with each passing day, the coalition grew stronger. The human message was simple: there was a new way of thinking in the galaxy, and humanity was at the forefront of it. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, reacted with the full force of its power. They deployed their most elite forces, the most advanced warships, to quash the uprising. In their minds, the humans were no more than a flash in the pan, an anomaly that could be crushed under the weight of their overwhelming might. They had underestimated the humans before, but now they believed that their military superiority would put an end to this challenge once and for all. The first real clash came in the form of a massive fleet engagement. The Council's ships, formidable and numerous, faced off against the coalition, a force much smaller in numbers but united in purpose. The humans, with their unorthodox tactics, turned the battlefield into a swirling, chaotic dance of strategy. They attacked from unpredictable angles, using guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and traps that played on the weaknesses of the Council's superior technology. And, as always, the humans fought with everything they had. Isla's heart pounded in her chest as the battle raged around her. "We're not backing down," she said to her crew, her voice resolute. "This is our galaxy now, and we'll fight for it. No one is going to take that from us." The battle stretched on for hours, each moment more intense than the last. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes of light, and the vacuum of space became a deadly game of cat and mouse. But slowly, the tide began to turn. The Council's ships, so used to commanding the battlefield, started to falter. The humans were relentless, pushing their advantage, exploiting every weakness. Finally, as the dust settled and the final shots rang out, it became clear the Galactic Council had been dealt a significant blow. Their forces had been routed, their fleets scattered. The humans had shown that not only could they survive, they could dominate when it mattered most. But the war was far from over. The human victory in the battle for the galaxy's future was just the beginning. Now, humanity had to confront the harsh reality of what it meant to challenge the rules of the universe. The Galactic Council had been humiliated, but they would not give up easily. And there were many more battles to fight. For Isla Novak and her crew, there was no turning back now. They had shattered the old order, and in doing so, had made themselves the greatest threat the galaxy had ever known. And they were ready to face whatever came next. The galaxy had underestimated humanity's strength, but now it was clear. No one survives when the humans don't follow the rules. The tension in the galaxy had reached a boiling point. The first true blow to the Galactic Council had been struck, but the ripple effects were felt far and wide, and the backlash was swift and brutal. What humanity had done was nothing short of a revolution. The old powers of the galaxy, accustomed to their reign of dominance, now found themselves in a precarious position. They had underestimated humans, and this mistake was costing them dearly. Captain Isla Novak stood on the command deck of the Reckoning, her mind focused on the reports coming in from every corner of their coalition. The battle for the galaxy was now fully underway, and the stakes had never been higher. Their victory at Omega-12 had sparked something larger, a fire of rebellion that was spreading like wildfire. It was no longer just about one species rising up, it was about a galaxy united against the Galactic Council's oppressive regime. But the Council had not remained idle. They had regrouped, and now they had one singular goal in mind: to crush this uprising, to demonstrate once and for all that the humans, and those who had chosen to ally with them, were nothing more than a fleeting nuisance. To the Council, their power was absolute, and it would take far more than a series of surprising victories to undo it. As Isla looked at the galaxy map flickering in front of her, her thoughts drifted back to the battle they had just won. It had been a significant blow to the Council, no doubt, but they knew the road ahead would be long and fraught with danger. Every day brought new challenges. Even with their newly formed coalition, humanity's victory in the battle for supremacy was not guaranteed. "Captain," Tessa's voice broke through her thoughts. "We've received word from the Centauri resistance. They're requesting an immediate rendezvous. They've managed to infiltrate a Council supply route. They believe it could be the key to crippling their war effort." Isla turned to face her. "Get us to them, now. If the Centauri are confident enough to act, then we need to make sure we're there to help them finish the job." The Reckoning shifted course, its engines humming as it surged forward. The crew was energized, their morale high after their previous victory, but they knew it would take more than that to keep the momentum going. The war was far from over, and they needed to be prepared for the unimaginable. As they arrived at the coordinates, Isla couldn't help but notice the remnants of a larger fleet. A powerful Centauri warship, heavily scarred from its own engagements, floated in space near the rendezvous point. There were smaller vessels scattered around it, their markings indicating that this was a force of rebels, those who had once lived under the shadow of the Council's reign and now saw an opportunity to tear that shadow down. She boarded the Centauri flagship with a small crew, Tessa and Victor Kale among them. They were greeted by General Zora, the Centauri commander, a sharp-eyed and quick-witted leader who had been one of the first to recognize the potential of a human alliance. "Captain Novak," General Zora greeted her as she stepped onto the command deck. "You came quickly. I'm glad to see we haven't lost your trust." Isla nodded, her expression resolute. "No one else has been as resourceful as you, General. If you say this supply route is important, then I'm listening." Zora's face hardened. "It's a lifeline for the Council's forces. They're using it to keep their supply lines open across the galaxy. If we cut it off, it could cripple them, at least for a while. The problem is, their fleet is heavily guarded. We have one shot at this, and if we fail, the retaliation will be catastrophic." "We won't fail," Isla said firmly. "We've already defied the impossible once. It's time to finish what we started." With a plan in place, the two forces, human and Centauri, began preparing for the strike. It was an audacious move, one that would require every ounce of their skill and ingenuity. Together, they would have to infiltrate a Council supply station, destroy critical resources, and escape without being caught. It was risky, and the odds were slim, but the humans knew that it was their best chance to make the Council fear them, not just for their power, but for their sheer unpredictability. As the mission unfolded, it became clear just how much humanity's approach had changed the course of war. Whereas other species would have carefully planned every move, the humans threw caution to the wind. They relied on their ability to adapt in real time, taking advantage of every opportunity, no matter how small. Their tactics were unorthodox, often baffling to the highly disciplined forces of the Council, and it was this very chaos that made them so dangerous. The strike team, led by Isla herself, infiltrated the Council's supply depot under the cover of darkness, using stolen technology to bypass the station's sophisticated security systems. Once inside, they planted charges on key components, prepared to trigger the destruction of the facility with precise timing. But as they made their way deeper into the station, something unexpected happened. They stumbled upon a much darker secret, a secret that would change everything they thought they knew about the Council. Hidden within the depths of the station was a collection of biological experiments, far worse than anything Isla had ever imagined. The Council had been conducting cruel and inhumane tests on hundreds of innocent civilian species from across the galaxy, genetically altered and experimented on in ways that defied the laws of nature. Isla's blood ran cold as she looked at the test subjects, some barely recognizable as sentient beings, others still holding on to the faint hope that they could escape their fate. This wasn't just about politics or war. This was about saving lives, about making sure the galaxy knew what the Council was truly capable of. "Captain," Tessa said, her voice strained as she approached. "You need to see this." Isla's eyes scanned the room, taking in the horror before her. "We can't leave them here. This is why we fight. This is beyond our fight with the Council. This is about freeing every sentient being they've oppressed. We can't turn our backs on this." Tessa nodded, and with a determined set to her jaw, she went to work. "I'll hack into their systems. We'll release them. If we don't, we're no better than the Council." And so, in that moment, the scope of their mission shifted. It wasn't just about cutting off the Council's supplies. It wasn't just about victory or revenge. It was about saving lives, about proving that humanity's mission in this galaxy was not about destruction, but about justice, freedom, and protection for the innocent. The mission was chaotic, dangerous, and close to failure at several points, but they succeeded. The charges were planted, the experiments were freed, and the Council's supply depot was destroyed along with the countless secrets they had tried to keep hidden from the rest of the galaxy. As Isla and her team made their escape, the message was clear: humanity had become the galaxy's reckoning. Their refusal to follow the rules was no longer just a challenge, it was a declaration. They were willing to risk everything to fight for what was right, to shatter the chains of oppression that had long held the galaxy's most vulnerable species. Back on the reckoning, as they made their way back to their coalition, the gravity of their actions began to sink in. The Galactic Council, once so sure of their rule, now found themselves facing a relentless force of nature they could not control. And the humans, led by Isla Novak, would not rest until the galaxy was free from the tyranny they had suffered for so long. It was only a matter of time before the Council would retaliate. But this time, humanity would be ready.